Hey everyone, this is Ted Aguilar from Death Angel, and you're listening, watching Heavy New York.
What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at the St. Vitus basement, and we are here with Ted of the Almighty Death Angel. Thank you for your time today, man.
No problem. How you doing?
Doing great. It's going to be a kick-ass show tonight.
Sold out. You know, Death Angel never played St. Vitus, but Mark has played it with Metal Allegiance, his other band, and he's been talking about it, saying it's a small place, but it should be fun.
Yep. This is the venue that every metal band has to play at least once.
I heard like Queens of the Stone Age played here. It's like the modern-day CBGBs or something like that. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. A little bit healthier than CBGBs.
Okay, yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah, but first thing is always first. You have your new album, Humanicide, out right now. Congratulations on the Grammy nomination, everything like that. Do you just want to talk about how like the making of this record was, the recording? Was this representative of just like a continuation of The Killing Divine, or do you think that this is like a stands out in the Death Angel catalog?
It's business as usual when we make a record. It's just when we're done with the touring cycle for the last record, we always go into it with a clean slate. We never try to top the last record, because the last record is its own entity. You know what I mean? You can't recreate that moment in time, so we start fresh. And the recording and writing process has always been the same with the last 4 albums with this lineup. It always starts with Rob, and he gets together with Will, and they hash out the ideas to get a basic skeleton, and then he sends it over to me, Mark and Damien, and we just learn it and figure it out. Mark, usually when he writes lyrics for a song, he needs to hear the song in its form, like with guitars and drums, and he goes off into the dark corners of the earth by himself with some headphones and pen and paper and just figures it out. And same process with we flew to Florida, had Jason Suecof produce it, and it's the same thing. It's it.
Yeah, Jason Suecof has worked with a lot of bands that I've interviewed before. Working with a producer, especially with Jason Suecof, who's worked with so many great bands, is a producer almost kind of like an additional member of the band? Do you want him to bring his own mix with working with you, or do you have to kind of like guide him in a way?
How would you say this? As all of the above. I mean, with Jason, him and Rob, it got to the point on this album where it's more 50-50 to me. Rob 50 and Jason 50. Because Rob knows the sound of Death Angel. He knows what he wants the album to sound like in terms of guitar tones, drum tones, and whatever Rob adds to the music. Excuse me. And Jason's there to kind of like the technical stuff, the engineer, because Rob kind of knows the board, but Jason's the master at it. You know what I mean? So They collaborate together. Jason has his ideas. He pushes us to be much better players and to make the song better, but he doesn't like really change the songs. You know what I mean? He hears the songs, he goes, all right, why don't you try that 4 more times, or why don't you, instead of doing it here, do it there. So it's a good collaboration with Jason. It's all of the above.
I've always thought that what I've admired about Death Angel is that, like, you guys really, I feel like people who appreciate, Humanicide could appreciate, The Killing Divine. They could appreciate Act 3 or any of these albums in the catalog. So is it fair to say that Death Angel maybe has kind of like a formula that you tend to stick with, or has the making of every record, you kind of touched upon it a little bit before, but like, has the making of every record been its own strategy and its own sort of it?
It's been its own strategy. There's definitely a foundation of Death Angel. We're just building on it. You know what I mean? You mentioned Act 3 earlier, and I was thinking about this the other day. Act 3 was the album that kind of set Death Angel to do whatever they want. I mean, you have songs like Room with a View, Veil of Deception. You have songs like Discontinued with some funk stuff. You have Seemingly and Stop and Disturbing the Peace, which is like pretty thrash anthems. And you have Ecstasy, which is more of a rock song. So it's pretty much all over the place, but consistent. So that album kind of set the foundation where Death Angel could veer off into different directions and not just stick to thrash only. We could have thrash, we could have rock elements on top of thrash, maybe some dark elements, acoustic elements. So there's really no formula. We just write. The foundation is in our DNA at this point of the game. So we're just adding ideas in this moment of time. You know what I mean? It was just, something like when I look back at each album, I look at it as like, wow, that's where our headspace is at. You know, Humanicide, this is where our headspace is at. Who knows what the next album, where our headspace will be at. But we always know that, you know, don't shake the foundation or don't try to rumble it or crumble it.
I think you have like the best of both worlds, where like a Death Angel album could be the same thing but also different at the same
Exactly, exactly. I'm really happy with Death Angel, and I like the style that even the '80s style, even when we reformed the Art of Dying and Killing season, and even the 4 albums we released with this new record, it's the same but different, which is cool, you know.
Yeah. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you came into the band in 2001, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So when you were joining Death Angel, were you looking at like Act 3 and the other 2 records to be like, this is how I have to play, or did the other members kind of want you to bring a little bit of your own mix?
You know, I kind of, for those, when we came back, I kind of stood back and, you know, watch them do the writing and let them kind of dictate what I should do. Because, you know, I mean, Death Angel came back in 2001. It's been 10 years since they got together. I didn't want to just throw in and just, hey, why about we do this? They kind of needed to feel each other out and get to know each other again as Death Angel. So it was really cool to see the 4 originals get together and write as Death Angel and try to be Death Angel again. And I just kind of stood back and watched the whole process. And if there's anything they wanted me to do, hey, well, how about do this and do that? You know, I'm just a team player, you know, so.
In terms of your approach for guitar playing, do you like follow a music theory element, like, okay, I'm playing in this key, so I have to work off of this scale and this note, or is the guitar work improvised in a way?
Improvised. You know, I just play what sounds right. You know, there's players, I mean, everyone has their own style. You know, some players will know, oh yeah, that riff's in the key of A, so I'm going to do a thing here in A minor and all this crazy, you know, notes. I just kind of figure out, like, you know, where it sounds right. Like, there's a few solos I did on the record where it's all improvised. I worked on them, but I just figured out, like, okay, I know this kind of scale, so I'll work in here. And Jason really helped me out. He goes, oh, you're in that scale. How about moving these notes over here to this one because it complements that one? I go, oh, I never thought of that because you're kind of stuck in this box. And Jason kind of helped me figure out to move away from the box. You could experiment out of the box but still be in the same realm. Yeah.
Now, when it comes to playing live, the Overkill Life of Agony tour that you just did earlier this year was actually my first time seeing Death Angel ever.
The PlayStation, right? Yeah.
That was a crazy show. You know, I've always thought, you know, it was a completely different experience seeing you live versus listening to the album. When it comes to playing your material live and playing on a stage versus like in the studio or in songwriting mode, is there a similar energy into playing live as when you're playing, you know, in a studio, or is it a completely separate mind frame altogether?
Separate mind frame, because in the studio you want to make it the best that you can, because once you put it on, let me throw the old school term, once you put it on wax or tape, you know, in the studio you're trying to get the best take you can, because once it's on wax and tape, it's in the history books. You can't take it back. Live's a different monster. You know, you just have that one shot to do it. And, you know, people like that human element. I like the human element of a little, you know, mistake here and there, you know, because not everything's perfect. We're all human. And I like the little push and pull, or maybe a little change of something in the song live. I mean, if I want to hear the record, I'll hear the record, but I want to see a live band, you know. I want to see what they do to the songs. You know what I mean? I don't want them to recreate it. Of course, it's going to be what it is on the album. And, you know, trying to play it exactly is not my thing, really. I just want a little variety in the liveness. But it's 2 completely different monsters whatsoever.
And you also have to master the art of crowd interaction as well, too.
Exactly. I mean, I was talking about this the other day with Rob because we're playing some new songs in the set off the new record. And it's, you know, it hasn't gotten any mileage yet. It just has 2 weeks of, you know, mileage where you could play it in the rehearsal room and get it tight. It sounds really good. Really, man. All right. But when you take it to the stage and there's a crowd and you're like, the loudness, you know, the sound of the stage, it's really different from your rehearsal room. You're like, all right, you know, and trying to, you know, because live is a totally different thing. It shifts. You know what I mean? In the rehearsal room, it's totally controlled. No one's watching you. You're just, all right, yeah. But live, people are looking at you. They're going crazy. And, you know, it's definitely a different monster.
Especially because the last time you played at PlayStation Theater, which is a 2,300 cap venue, you know, on a big stage. You're playing at this little intimate venue at St. Vitus with no barrier, you know.
It's awesome. I like those. I mean, just something about the vibe, you know, the room, a dingy place, you know, the crowd's right there, small stage, it's packed and sweaty. Just something about it makes for a good show. Yeah, I mean.
Just watch the guitar pedals, people.
Yeah. Luckily, I have a MIDI board, but still, watch it. You know what I mean? So,
One question I love to ask every artist, because it's always the hardest question for every artist to answer. How do you know when a song is done?
you never do. You got to stop chasing the dragon. Oh, when writing or recording, you have to stop chasing. You got to just say to yourself, that sounds good. It's done. It's up to you to stop it. If you go, no, I want to tweak it. I mean, you can go on for days. You know what I mean? It's like you won't know. It's weird. It's like we get a song done. Like I remember talking to Will. He was telling me about one song. Because, oh man, I wish I would have known to do this in the studio. It sounds good. I go, but you didn't know until you have to play it live. You know, at that point, in that moment, you go, yeah, that sounds good. Then when you let it go and come back to it and you start playing it, you start adding stuff you think it sounds good, but you didn't know then. So, I mean, it's good to just, once you think, you feel like that's it, cut it. You know what I mean? Cut it. If you're adding new stuff, then release it on the live album or something, you know.
That's the beauty of deadlines.
That's the beauty of deadlines. You have to, or else you just keep going like Chinese democracy, you know?
That's the best analogy ever.
Mm-hmm. You have to stop, you know.
Another question I wanted to ask you is kind of maybe a bit of a cliche question, but like, you know, being nominated for a Grammy along with Candlemass and Killswitch Engage and so many great metal bands, you know, I mean, really just how does it feel that you're nominated for an award? Because you clearly made an album and you make music that really does connect with people and really speaks to people in a profound way. I mean, just how are you looking at yourself as an artist for being nominated for such a tremendous accomplishment?
It's definitely a childhood dream. You know, we found out when we played Calgary in Canada at some place called, I think, Dickens Pub is when we found out. I mean, it was a shock. I celebrated it that day, but now, I mean, everyone's celebrating it in a different way. I'm looking at it as like, all right, cool, we're nominated, we celebrated, fuck yeah, excuse my language. But now I'm just focusing at the task at hand now. Yeah, I mean, the tour and whatnot. Then, you know, if we win the Grammy, cool. If not, the fact that we're nominated is cool, but it doesn't change the way I play or what we do. Of course, I'm excited. It's a childhood dream. It's still in the back of my head, but, you know, until the Grammys comes, I'm not worried about it right now. The fact that we're nominated, now I just need to focus on each show coming up and making it the best show possible for all the fans.
That's awesome to hear because, you know, sometimes people reach that goal and like the hunger's lost in a way.
No, you know, everyone's different. I'm not going to judge, and you know, some people get caught up, and that's okay because it is a great accomplishment. It's hard to get nominated for Grammy, especially, you know, for a thrash metal band. You know, I'm sure early on in the late '80s, early '90s, you know, you had to compromise music to get a Grammy, maybe write a hit, but with Humanicide, we weren't even thinking of a Grammy. We were just thinking, let's write the best record and most intense record possible to come out of the gates and just, you know, blow people away. Blow us away and blow people away. Then all of a sudden, whoa, we got nominated with Humanicide. It just blew us away. So I look at it as like, good. Now let's go jam and let's go kick ass. So hopefully what we do out there on the stage, out there on our socials, out there, whatever a band has to do in this era, will help us win. So I'm not just gonna rest on my laurels and just say, oh, we're cool. You know, that's not me. That's not us. We're in. Let's just go kick ass.
And the final question I wanted to ask you is just do a quick little talk about gear because you said that you work with ESP, and it seems like ESP seems to be the go-to for, you know, Behemoth uses ESP, Metallica uses ESP. Just they are a very artist-driven company. So using ESP, do you use ESP guitars because it best suits the style that Death Angel plays, or is it mainly just something that you picked up and it just felt like a natural feeling?
All of the above. I mean, you know, I picked up ESP because James and Kirk played ESP. Those are my heroes, you know, because when you're young, you find a band that you love and adore, and, you know, you want to emulate them. It's like oh, look at that guitar. They play ESPs. If it's good for them, it's good for me. So that's, how I picked up the ESP. And when I got it, I mean, they make great guitars. You know what I mean? I do have customs, but I'm also using like standard guitars straight from the shelf. So I go back and forth with them. I mean, the customs are great, but just the standalone standard that they off the shelf in the guitar store is incredible. You know what I mean? If God forbid, if any of my guitars go down, I could go buy one at a store and I could play it live right then and there if they set it up right. It'll sound good and play good. So, I mean, I played other guitars, which is great. The Jacksons. I played Jackson, BC Rich. I mean, I played Rob's Jacksons. They sound good. But ESP, when I put on their guitars, like the Eclipse or like the Telly, which I have a signature Telly, it just feels right for me. I mean, and they sound good. I mean, the most important thing for a guitar for me is the feel, how it feels. I mean, it's got to sit right. It's got to play right. And I could just modify it to make it sound good to an amp I use. And ESP is the guitar for me. For what Death Angel does, I love it, man. I love it.
In terms of amps, what's the weapon of choice for the amplifiers or pedals or anything going on like that?
Mesa Boogie Mark V.
Mesa Boogie's the best.
They are the best. And I'm fortunate enough to live an hour away from Mesa Boogie. They're a Bay Area company. I get to go to the headquarters to get my head service, and their customer service is really good. Their products are really good, and man, the amps, man. I mean, not only do they sound good, the features that you could do with them. The Mark V especially is like so many modes on each channel, assignable EQ, which type of tubes and sound of tubes, pentatode, tritode, assignable effects loop, like a record out. All these features, man, it's amazing. I could mess with tones for days, and my sound man gets mad because I love tinkering with it. But I got it to a point now where I'm really happy with, and Mesa Boogie's the amp of choice, and plus their cabinets they make, it's awesome. It's real wood with vintage 30s. They make all different types of cab sizes, but I like the stiletto cab. It's like a 412. It's like a Marshall size cab. Those are the best sounding cabs to me. And it's basically, I do have pedals, but they're in a rack drawer connected to a GCX. It's all in the loop. So basically, it's just all my pedals are in the loop, and I just engage it when I need it. But it's basically my tone is guitar to a wireless into the head. That's it. And I have a Decimator, ISP Technologies Decimator rack that goes into the loop of the Mark V set to channel 3, which gates all the noise, and all the other channels are free from the loop.
So that's what's behind the thrashy sound of Death Angel.
For me, you know what I mean? Yeah, when you hear my tone tonight, it's very clean. Or if you're around, you'll hear it at sound check or something like that. You know what I mean?
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, man. I had fun.
Yeah, so did I. Is there just anything else you would like to promote for Death Angel in terms of tours or maybe some new music? This will be uploaded by midnight, so if it hasn't been announced, don't say it here.
Well, we got like a couple weeks on this tour left, maybe 2.5 weeks. We have our annual Christmas show in San Francisco, which we do every year. It's December 20th and 21st at a club called Slim's. We do this every year. It's on the Friday night on the 20th, we have Hellfire, which is from San Francisco. We have a San Francisco band called Charger, which is the bass player Matt Freeman from Rancid, his band. They kind of like Motorhead sounding band. Really good band. And the next night, Saturday on the 21st, we have Warbringer, who's supporting us. Yep. And we have local thrash heroes, Hatred. So it's going to be a real cool show. Then after that, we're home for the holidays. Then we go to Europe February and March with Testament and Exodus for the Bass Strikes Back. We're doing all Europe for about like 4 or 5 weeks, something like around that time.
Please tell that promoter to bring that tour to the U.S.
You know what? You need to tell Chuck Billy. No. There's talks about bringing it to U.S. We don't know when. I mean, all we know is Europe was the first one. We hope to bring it. We're just waiting on, the powers that be to get it going. And what we're really, really excited about, we're supporting Iron Maiden in the Philippines May 16th. So that's really one to check off the bucket list.
Awesome. Congrats on that.
Thank you. There's a lot. If everything goes well, everything will be up on our socials, but I think we'll be busy up until spring of 2021.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ted.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. Everybody, we are here with Ted of the almighty Death Angel. Pick up Humanicide if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.